Hello, hello, and welcome to episode number 3 of 11FS Spotlight. In this weekly show, we shine the spotlight, best and brightest. My God, that's a lot of puns, whoever wrote that. In tech and financial services to try and understand what gets them going, what gets them growing, and what they think the future of the industry will look like. Joining me today is Tobie van Zale, who is co-founder and CEO of Bettr. Tobie, how is it going, sir? How are you?
Hey Simon, I'm good in yourself. Can't
I'm
complain.
really well, thank you. Although I think you're in a better place today. You've got the beach right outside you, right?
That is correct, yeah.
Where in the world are you?
I'm in a beautiful little town called Jeffreys Bay. I came here for the lockdown and obviously surfing season. So I'm based here until the end of October and I'll be back in Cape Town City straight after this.
Beautiful, beautiful part of the world. I'm very jealous. A reminder to those watching along. Big part of this show is about your involvement. So do leave questions in the comments sidebar. We'll be answering them live for you today. Tobie, let's start off a little bit about you and what you do. You've started a few companies before this. Tell me the story of how you landed at Bettr.
Bettr has been actually a 15-year vision of mine. And my first fintech company, official fintech startup, was called MoneySmart. And back then, it was a personal finance management tool inspired by what was going on in the US, like with Mint.com, the early stages of TechCrunch, really. And I thought that was needed in South Africa. And MoneySmart was a tool that allows you to connect to all your accounts and it brings it into a single view. And that's actually where a lot of the information in terms of how people bank and how they store their money and how they transact and the challenges that they have came to light. So when you give people transparent access to their money and they have finally can make sense of what a budget looks like, income, expenses, where they spend, they quickly realize, bank fees are taking quite a lot of their income. And another thing was a lot of the young people were multi-banked. So you might have a checking account with one institution and you have perhaps a savings account with another and a credit card with another. And we realized that South Africans were extremely multi-banked and they were incurring a lot of fees across all these accounts. And when it suddenly made them realize like how much they were spending, there were no tool or alternative for them to go and find a no fee or low cost banking account. And they certainly didn't have the knowledge or the literacy to make those comparisons and draw the conclusions in order to switch from one bank to another themselves. And for us, I saw that is really like frustrating consumers, and it's limiting their choice to being financially included, and they are extremely underserved by these incumbents because there's only 5 of them, big 5 banks, and you're kind of like forced to just trust them. So where do you go? What alternative is there? It turns out too that a lot of the people back then were young, right? So they were starting out, they were just graduating, and they were paying half their first year salaries into student debt. And even if they were paying off the student debt, they didn't build their own credit record in doing so. And when they needed formal access to credit, something even like signing a lease agreement, they get outright declined because they've never been in a position to manage debt, to service debt, repay it, or build any form of credit worthiness. So, it's hard when you are just starting out in life, you're extremely underserved, and you can't formally participate in the financial services system until you're actually worth something to them. Making sufficient money, right, to take out a loan, because that's their business model, putting your money into products that actually, is designed for savings, but where's the savings at the end of the day? I mean, consumers are asking those questions. So all that data told us really about how consumers manage their money, how the industry is making their money from these consumers. And, the vision stuck that one day we've got to build something that, one, empowers the end consumer with financial inclusion and control, gives them a one bank account that costs nothing, where the best products and services can ultimately connect to them. So MoneySmart was really the catalyst, and I've built API infrastructure companies, very much like Plaid in the US. And again, we took the personal finance tool, we wrapped an API around it, and we started integrating it into personal lending loan companies and insurance companies, and banks even wanted to use the technology because it was so quick to like get all your information 3 minutes or less and originate it to a lender's back office. But interesting enough is they gave us scale, and that's really where the money started, flowing in for the company, for Limitless Technology Group, the company that I founded that housed all these apps. But again, none of those savings, were passed on to the consumer. And we just saw how big the problem really is. When the banks and the insurance companies and the lenders started using this tech to serve their customer base.
It's
And
interesting you got a front row seat to the business model that works, that's a bit asymmetrical in who benefits. And having the big moat of being the only game in town for quite some time, banks have been able to look at customers on their spreadsheet and only go after the business they like and stay away from business that they might like in 5 years' time. And actually, maybe that leaves an opportunity, because if there's a customer that could be creditworthy in 3 to 5 years' time, why aren't you working with them now and getting ahead of that? And I guess is that sort of front row seat that you got the inspiration behind Bettr? What was the origin? How did that come about?
yeah, so that was one thing. And I just said, look, geez, there's a lot of people that's giving their information to these institutions. But at the end of the day, the institution has control of how they price and how they originate and sell a product based on this information. So why can't we just turn around the power, like shift the power, give it back to the consumer and say, hey, all these guys, ultimately, all these big institutions wants your business. Let them connect, and you control on what the bases are: the best rate, best transparency, best open policy, profiled to your needs. And I just thought, like, there's got to be a catalyst for this, and there's got to be change. And I think on a personal level, for me, I've just always been driven to change things that's wrong, and I can't help that's the career that I've chosen. And some days you think it's a passion, and other days you think it's a curse. But that gets me up, and that gets me going. And Bettr is really an amalgamation of enabling people with tech and tools, putting them first in the driver's seat, and let those institutions really like consider, hey, these are people that have money. They should be in control in the first place, and business should be done on their terms, not yours. And I think that's very evident in the 21st century, where business models are changing. The linear business model doesn't work anymore. But unfortunately, for these large institutions, it's going to be quite hard to turn around right now. And fintechs obviously have the unfair advantage of no legacy, lower cost base, exponential technology, and social networks to scale, for acquiring customers and building out their businesses.
Yeah, the lack of that legacy and cost is actually an advantage. You don't have the scale immediately, but maybe there's something else that you can do with it. So I guess the on the nose question is, what is Bettr? Is it a challenger bank? Is it a neobank? Is it a tech company? Is it an account aggregator? Like, what is it? How do you describe it?
So Bettr is a technology company, right? From a company perspective, it's a technology company that aims to do banking differently. And our view is, if we were just building another bank, we wouldn't be changing anything. So that's definitely not what we intend to do, right? And so building a technology company, our vision is to create Africa's open banking platform. And that's really about empowering the consumer, and through open banking principles and philosophies and technology, enable the best fintechs to come and enrich and provide low-cost, transparent, high-value products to our consumer base. In other terms, so we don't have our own banking license. We're not in a position yet in South Africa, like other countries, where a fintech license exists so that you can tap into the payments network of your country. South Africa you have three options. You can either partner with a sponsor bank, which we've done. You can get your own mutual banking license, or tier 1 or tier 2 banking license. So all of that is extremely costly, comes with a lot of compliance and overheads, a steep curve, a capital intensive outlay. And we just wanted to provide a better banking experience, partnered with a bank that has a mutual interest in our business model, to lower the cost so we can pass that on to our customers. So we are a neobank in the fintech vocabulary, if you had to identify.
There's a partner bank behind the scenes, but I guess your business model is a bit more marketplace, in the sense that you're also inviting other people in and using the data to kind of drive that. We're already getting questions coming in from our audience, so audience, do keep them coming. Jay Thompson asks, how has the business changed over the last year or two? What have you learned in this process of building? You guys got very close, been getting closer to your launch. You've kind of got the website out there now. What's been changing in the last year or two?
What's changed in the last year or two is we've had to restructure our entire business. I mean, the barrier to entry in this market is so high. So it's extremely capital intensive. There isn't a lot of VC that wants to back a business that's going up against the banks. So your only way in is to rely on either, a payment processor out there to build an MVP, kind of prove your model, and show that you can technically execute, that you can compliantly execute, and sort of tick all the boxes that would be initial hurdles for an investor to invest before you raise capital, and also ensure that you understand what you're building from a technology perspective as well as regulatory. So we've gone through that process, and unfortunately, I think in parallel to that, we've always been a first principles design thinking company as well. So consumers are really involved in designing the service, and the feedback that we got was, look, we need X, we need Y features, we need a better savings rate, etc., etc. And the providers that we were using at the time, because we were initially so small, just couldn't fulfill on our needs. And the only way for us was to go and convince a local sponsor bank that we are fit for the game, really, that we can achieve distribution, that we can achieve scale, that we can run this business compliantly. And they've put us to the test. So 8-month process for a business case to be approved. And post that business case, we had to undergo rigorous due diligence on our technology, on our security. Deloitte did an audit with us earlier this year, and we had to prepare 4 months for that audit. In addition to that, we had to build the infrastructure to kind of get ready to market. And we had to migrate from previous infrastructure to new infrastructure as well. So it was very, very super challenging in order to provide this beautiful business model. And then COVID came, and that just completely disrupted us. By that time, we were pretty much broke. We've invested all our money. No investor wanted to really fund us. And then I think when the business case was approved earlier this year and the Deloitte audit came out clean, that's when investors started feeling comfortable. And also, there were other digital banks that was launching, and it was kind of good for us to stand back and just observe, what's different about them, right? How's the market perceiving them? Who's the customer base that they're going after? To go and evaluate, are we still on the right track? Is our target market still served or underserved by these new ones and these incumbents? And, all of that is out there now, and it provides us a lot of comfort that we are on the right track, and we could prove through consumer demand and product and execution that we are fit for investment, and obviously fit for a sponsor bank. So it's a long journey. If you're a fintech in this country, it's extremely challenging, right? So high capital starting amounts, high regulatory barrier, and a long road to technically execute and get a good product right.
But it sounds like you've been able to get some traction. So well done. I can see a few more questions coming in, but before we get to those, I mean, you mentioned briefly, where do you play in the market? We shared the promo video for Bettr on the 11FS Slack channel, and it was a sellout. The emojis were off the charts. It's clear you're targeting a younger demographic with that video. Why have you focused on Gen Z and that younger demographic?
We felt that there's this new up and coming youth that that we need to step in and make sure that the millennial middle class story doesn't repeat itself. So we've got an interesting saying that there's this recipe. There's this recipe where you go to school, you get good grades, then you gotta go to university, get your degree, and ultimately go work for the boss man. And before you know it, you get married, you have kids, you're 35, and you're just stuck at this job because you've got all these bills to pay, a mortgage, credit cards, the second baby's on the way. And, your whole youth has gone into that initial dream, that like life cycle, right? That cultural pass down. But people have realized is they're hitting 35, they're halfway through their working career, and they haven't really saved any money. So, the traditional process and the way of life financially and professionally is really failing a lot of people. And Gen Z is very woke, and also younger millennials, and they started asking questions. They started asking questions, and we are on student campuses and out there, and they come to us and they're like, "Hey, why is somebody who's managing your investments called a broker? Like, why aren't they called a richer?" As an example. And why are banks making so much money from people that don't have any? Why do we have over 100 pension fund companies, yet less than 8% of our country can retire? You see, so what we have now is this millennial middle class stuck in the rat race, right? And they've got very little chance of retirement. But we are disencouraged to start businesses and being creative and thinking out of the box to look after ourselves. And what you have now is people addicted to a salary. It's the same addiction rate in sex and cocaine, right? Mm-hmm. And Gen Z is saying, look, we've got the power of the internet. We were born with a phone in our hand. We are a third of the population, and we are all for change. We inspire change, and we follow things that we have a vested interest in, and we can co-create and collaborate in them. And that was for us very interesting. So even if you're 16 and all the way up to 35, you're predominantly still underserved. Right, the same problem remains that when I started Money Smart 10 years ago. Nothing has changed, and there's been no real disruption in banking and financial services for the last 20 to 50 years. And for us, the young market is such an opportunity to start early, start right. Build something that's culturally relevant and relatable, something that provides equality. Something that involves everyone. That there's no diversity and there's nothing that separates, the wealthier young person from the poorer. And the music video is really a celebration of creating a new culture of money, inspiring change, inspiring creativity, and going along and saying, we want to co-create the service so that we never fail you. And it's in your best interest to collaborate with us openly and transparently all of the way. So the music video for us was to celebrate a financial institution now existing in the 21st century with an exponential business model. Because if you look at banking and just finance in South Africa today, it's very much designed and it looks and it feels like an industrial age kind of thing, right? It's not exciting, it's not enticing, it doesn't get you up at bed. It's not something like you share on your Instagram with your friend, like, look at this cool bank. And we felt that that really put us on the map, and that's just a 1% example of the creativity that we are yet to unleash when we ultimately launch the market.
And speaking of that creativity, a question from Amanda Moore's come in and said, do you see yourself staying there? Are you going to keep pushing into that younger and younger generation, stay with the 20-something, stay with the next teenage generation, and or do you see yourself growing with this cohort as they age out?
That's a good question. I mean, that's the advantage that we have. Starting at the age of 16, teaching you basic financial literacy, basic skills. Put all of that financial management in the pocket of your hand and coaching you that you are in control and helping you with that spending and financial management decisions and making saving and investing easier. That is the idea. We want to be the first account, not the second account, because even in South Africa, people, they stay 24 to 28 years with the first bank account that they have. They never really leave. They just open up new accounts. And that also explains why people are so multi-bank, right? You never want to go away from where mom and dad referred to, but look at mom and dad now, they barely, can afford the second mortgage they took out on your university loan. So, and I think we are young enough, we've made all those mistakes, and we've seen how the industry works, and, you've only got one life, so make it the best, make it better.
So there was a question from Mariette Ferrara, who's head of marketing at 11FS, and she asked about the main challenges to grow Bettr. And I think you'd mentioned earlier some of the challenges in terms of the infrastructure and kind of the audits and all of that kind of stuff. Are there other things around like cultural habits, inertia, consumer adoption? Like, what are the things that you're worried about on a day-to-day basis? What are the things that you think are your biggest challenges over the next 6 months?
That's a very good question. There's so much going on building a business like this. The first focus that we always want to give, it's not always possible, is what the consumers are saying. Giving our ear to them and also giving them a voice. So always being true to being consumer-centric first and acknowledging what their needs and their demands are, and then incorporating that into our value proposition. However, from where we are now, we are in laser focus and execution mode. So everything is about deadlines and due dates, and making sure everything is solid and sound from a financial perspective, regulatory, compliance, and technical perspective. So we are in the trenches. We're working day and night. We're a small team, but we do an incredible amount of work. And being venture funded, there's particular milestones that you have to reach. So, not being properly funded from day one, funding this ourselves, we now have an opportunity with the round that we closed to hit those milestones, finally see it to the end of the market. So, it becomes very overwhelming to manage all these things and these relations, and that is our only focus right now. So when we launch, we have an active community that we're growing. So we'll have an active consumer base, and we are getting an enormous, actually very overwhelming amount of inquiries from industry, from telecoms providers to loyalty companies, all who have existing consumers that they believe deserves better. And all that is leading up to very good potential distribution partners for us. So, you're always concerned about how you're going to acquire a customer, what's your cost going to be. You don't know until you're live, right? You have a theory, but you got to put it out there. But the campaign is doing very well, and the industry is receiving us very well. And we're very, very excited for how excited everyone else is. We're also very nervous because we've got to keep our heads down, not get too distracted, and just focus on the goal to get to.
Yeah, always challenging. Like the old saying is, startups don't starve, they drown. There's too much to do, and kind of focus is absolutely everything. And I guess so. Talk to me about the team. Talk to me about the talent. Sort of who is the team, and how have you found sort of sourcing talent in the South African market and in and around Cape Town?
Talent for us is all like the team that we have. Let me tell you, these people know what it is to dance in fire and walk many coals through many hells. And it's the sheer belief in yourself and wanting to belong and making change in the world. So Bettr was really a vision that started drawing people in. The way that we found the team was, I was advocating this quite a lot in the early days, and I met my co-founder, Andrzej Stempowski, who's the CTO of the company, in 2016. Again, I think the vision just drew him in, and we've just been like back-to-back working together. Then my neighbor at the time, Robert Leusink, who's now head of finance and operations, he was just finishing his chartered accounting degree or something, and he wanted to go into the audit trail, but he jumped off and joined us. And his friend, Sergio Mare, who was also frequently there, they also heard about, these guys are building a bank from their kitchen table, we've got to give it a listen. And that was just interesting. So the core guys came together, and then some of my best friends that I've worked with in the industry as well, they've done phenomenal work, like Marco and Terry D'Souza. They're some of the most extremely talented design creative team. Team Geek, Ryan Brousseau and Andrei Todorov, shout out guys. Like they've been very instrumental on our technology side. And then we've got on the design is Make Rain. So everybody in our company is very world class. They've kind of had some form of success so they can invest sweat and cash, or discount sort of their hourly rate. And our goal is to build the most leanest, most beautiful product out there. So it's really about people feeling and believing that change is necessary, that kind of had them refer one another to come and speak to Anja, myself, Robbie, and Sergio. So we chose people by commitment. There's people that started working at us not earning any money for 3 to 6 months, and they would do whatever it takes, by whatever shape, mean, or form, just to be involved. And when we got some cash, we would fund them. But they never went away. And sometimes they would have to do 2 jobs just to do their passion work at Bettr. And that team, I'm incredibly proud of all of them. And recently we have Danica Govender, who's now heading up marketing, along with Rashid Ferguson, who's the director of the video, head of brand, and Danica's head of marketing. They came in, worked 3 months unpaid, and did all of this work, like all of this production, and launched this brand in hope that we would close this round and surely pay it off. So it's all about belief, and it's all about dedication, and that's why we can get so much done with so little, with a small team, with so little funding, to have come where we are today. But
So many
things have
people believe in the
changed.
mission and the story, it seems, Tobie. Like, and that mission seems to be kind of at the core of everything you guys are doing. Like, how do you think what you guys do could change how young South Africans interact with money? Do you think you could have got a real shot at that? Like, honestly, or is there still mountains to climb here?
I think we absolutely have a greenfields opportunity there, right? Because we see the world the way they do. We understand their point of view. We understand their cultural heritage. We actually have listened to them instead of building a product, shoving it down their throat, and telling them, trust this. We've invited them to participate in our vision and in our journey. And we did this from an organic point of view, and we got traction on that. So how we're going to change it is, number one is we have to teach disciplines, right? There's a few stigmas that we got to get rid of in terms of money. We have to inspire belief and motivate people to, believe in themselves, start a business early, because the earlier you start learning and teaching yourself about how to make money, earn money, how to grow it, and ultimately invest it. And that is what the traditional South African right now isn't providing around the dinner table. They can't coach their kids about personal financial management. Our schools doesn't have financial literacy as a subject built into it. Entrepreneurship is, like sell marshmallows, at break time. It's not teaching people how to be, owners of their financial destiny, because they are scared. There is an old culture, there's an old stigma, and we have to first break those barriers down. So how we do that is through the We Deserve Better campaign, where we are educating young South Africans how you can go from nothing in the poorest circumstances to becoming a big hip hop star like the Koala or Costa Teach. And they speak about money honestly, truthfully, and openly, giving a life advice first and inspiring belief, and then also how they make their money and manage it.
I love that idea of creating a role model where it's good life advice rather than get money by any means necessary. It's much more of a like there is a financial literacy piece here, and there's a learning curve, and like whatever your creative passion is can be your business, and that's inspiring for a lot of people.
Yes,
And it isn't the
absolutely.
salaryman job. With people don't get inspired by that. Like if the good advice means, oh well, you're going to have to be bored for the next 30 years, that's quite difficult to swallow. But if the good advice is you can do what you want and you can make yourself a life, I think that's a much more hopeful story to be able to share with people.
That's so true, Simon. I mean, there's a lot of people that didn't believe in us, and that's a big motivator for me.
Yeah, I can really imagine. So as you look forward then, let's just look at the business a little bit. How are you guys going to really monetize this thing? Is it going to be more of the banking business model in terms of deposits and lending? Is it going to be more on the marketplace side? Like where's your head at, knowing that startups are startups and things could change?
Yeah, I mean, so the primary revenues is just two streams. It's net interest income that we share with our sponsor bank,
Mhm.
and that is we take a cut after our customers saved money. So our business model is explained right up front to the customer that we only make money when you're saving money. So if a customer saves money and they are in a positive balance, then Bettr gets a cut of that we share with our sponsor bank. So how we do that is we obviously have to teach you how to keep a positive balance. So with that, the app provides you with daily spend capability and gives you tips and tools on how to stick within a budget, right? And rewards you for doing so. So we don't want to give too much away from how
Yeah,
that whole
no.
hook
But
and loop
the
works,
idea is
but
to get people addicted
yeah.
to saving.
Yeah, that's absolutely it. And the second one is interchange. So that's also revenue that's being slowly but surely diminished, becoming diminished. So interchange from card, that's another avenue of revenue. And then the marketplace. So mobile
Yeah.
airtime and necessities like electricity and data. But ultimately, it's going to be the marketplace. So our business is great. So from a unit economics perspective, so it can wash its own face with mere £100 a month positive balance, right?
Wow.
So that's our first target, is making sure that once you've acquired a customer, you've onboarded them, is maintain at least 100 quid with a positive balance. and then build on from there.
Which is
Create
very
more
different
money,
to
more
what the big
wealth.
five banks would be looking for in terms of a deposit base in order to make it wash its own face, because their cost structure is fundamentally different.
Of course, and that is unfortunate, but I mean, that's how they started, right? And now we're in this 21st century and it's exponential, and technology makes it so much more easier. So there is a big advantage from a costing perspective.
So crystal ball time, as we're coming out of 2020, as we're looking to 2021, what do the next 18 months look like for you, and what are your hopes?
Well, we really want to acquire market share in the youth and student market. I mean, that's a big thing for us. If we can get 10% of that market, and we have really good developments on the way, then that's a success for us. So we want to build also a profitable business, so not chase multi-billion-dollar valuations. We are very realistic about building this company. So we certainly want to keep as much of this business for ourselves, right? So it gets very expensive and taxing, raising funding all the time and diluting. So for us, we always want to remain in control of the vision, and we want to be building a profitable business to give our customers the peace of mind that we don't always need funding to trust us with their money, and that we can do things in our own time. Because the moment you take on venture funding, it's pedal to the metal, right? You got to perform. You've suddenly got pressure for exits or mergers, or private equity firms want to buy a big chunk out, and that's certainly not the kind of business. We spent years putting this thing together and have had enormous sacrifices, and we're just not going to let that go. So building a profitable business, acquiring 10% of the student market, that is primary focus for us in the next 18 months.
Fantastic. Well, I really wish you guys well with it. The last thing I'm going to ask before we close this one out is, like, what have your big lessons been, and especially for budding entrepreneurs that are outside of London, Silicon Valley, people that are building in some of the harder places? What have you found has been the keys to getting to where you've got to?
You can't do thing half. You can't do it half off. You got to find a way. You got to scale down your lifestyle. You got to get rid of the shit you don't need, and you got to go and work. If you thought you've ever worked hard in your life, you're going to work harder. If you thought you've sacrificed, you're going to sacrifice more. And the time to get to realize your dream is always going to take longer. So buckle up for 5 years. Maybe not always, but it takes a long time to see things materialize. And my previous businesses, I mean, it's always working hard, lots of sacrifice. It pays off, though. I'm not going to lie. It's great when you get a big chunk of cash and you can settle the tax man, and you can travel the world and just enjoy it. But then you ultimately realize a few months in, after 6-7 months, I was lying in a beach actually in Greece, and I told my wife, like, it's time, I need to start Bettr, and we came back and we started it. So when you have the idea, start working, start figuring out how you're going to maintain a lifestyle to put 100% into this, and have absolute conviction and self-belief that you're going to do it. Don't be close to good advice, and good advice is not advisors that you can always buy advice, but you've got to have really good advisors around you, people that motivate you. Your friendship circles is probably going to change. You need to stay positive, right? Because this is a very lonely journey. It's very hard. It's very taxing mentally. It's taxing physically on your health as well. So you've got to invest in yourself. Stay healthy. Stay in a positive environment. Read books. Know when to switch off. It's always hard. So self-discipline is very, very important. So if you are not going to create the best version of yourself on a health level, right? How on earth are you going to inspire your team to do the same, right? How on earth are you going to look good for your company if you're the representative of it, so that other people follow your example? So you have to start with yourself, and you have to condition yourself to be in the mindset of a successful person. And just dematerialize, live lean, stick hard, believe in yourself, and never stop working.
I love that. What a great way to finish. Well, we're coming towards the end of the show. I really want to thank you, Tobie, and ask you where people can find out more about Bettr.
Yeah, it's bettr.app, Bettr.app.
Fantastic. Well, that's it for this week. Don't miss our other live show, Newsroom, which goes live on Tuesdays at around 3:30 British summertime, which is also 10:30 on the East Coast of the US. Newsroom, we take a deep dive into the biggest story every single week. Looking forward to this one coming on Tuesday. Have a great rest of your week, everybody. Bye for now.
Cheers, Simon.